Alrighty. Well, hi everybody. I think we've got who we're going to get for the time being, and more people will drop in, I'm sure, but we'll go ahead and get ourselves started. If you can, mute yourself for the time being. Of course, if you have a burning question or if you have any question at all, please put it in the chat so we can have those, and we will get to them by the end. If we don't get to them by the end, we'll certainly include them in our FAQ and send them out to the group later, but hopefully we'll be able to answer everybody's questions during this time. Last training we did, we had plenty of time for questions and should be able to get to everything. So I will get us started. What we're going to do today is we'll do a brief overview of United Way of Northeast Georgia for those of you who are already very familiar. And then Dr. Tony Mallon, who's going to moderate our Q&A, will introduce himself and we'll get going. But just for the sake of everybody's knowledge, I'm Mark Madison. I'm our Director of Community Impact at United Way of Northeast Georgia, and we're really excited to get this started. It's been some years coming, so I'm glad to get to share this community impact process with all of you and hope you'll ask the questions that you have. And Dr. Mallon, if you would introduce yourself, please, as well.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Tony Mallon. I'm on the United Way board, and I'm on the Community Impact Committee that helped develop some of the processes for this this application. And I'm at the School of Social Work, and I'm also the director of the Institute for Nonprofit Organizations there. And I'm really just here as a possible resource, and I'm going to be helping Mark monitor any questions. So if we don't get to it in real time, we will get to it towards the end. So don't feel as though we're neglecting your question. It could be that Mark's going to answer it later on in the presentation, or we'll be sure to get to it at the end. So.
All right. Well, super. We'll go ahead and get started. Appreciate again you all being taking part. I mean, there are a couple of online resources we'll reference that are on our website as well for a little more details. But without any further ado, we'll get started. So we're starting out talking about our community impact focus areas. So one of the big pieces of what we're doing here is transitioning from having just a general swath of things that we work on to strategically focusing on particular areas of emphasis. And those are based on, we do that through a couple of different ways. The main way we talk about it internally is that we want to be data-led and volunteer-driven. So through a lot of secondary data, census data, even community conversations and focus groups, we're able to find a lot of what the needs are, but then just knowing generally what the needs are, there's numerous different needs. So we want to also take that, lead us to the particular needs that we're hoping to address, our community needs us to address, and then bring that to community leaders and volunteers, members who are invested in how the different portions of our region are impacted, and lean on them to help us move forward so we can actually address the issues we found in the data itself. And that's how we create community impact. So some ways that we've kind of done that from the outset is started working with third-party partners, and they've been incredible help to us. The first of those was the Fanning Institute at University of Georgia. And for any of you who know about them, you know that they're some of the best at compiling that exact secondary data we're talking about, pulling in census data, pulling in other information, so that we can have it on hand, ready to go to figure out, okay, we serve a 12-county region. We know what issues might look like in one county, what does it look like for another? And then additionally, what's even more pressing is what does it look like for this group as a whole? Because one area succeeding or failing in one particular area, one county succeeding or failing in one particular area impacts the one next to it and vice versa. So they were helpful in getting that secondary statistical data. And then Georgia Center for Nonprofits for the past couple of years has advised on many different United Ways transitions to community impact. And one of the biggest helps they've provided to us is the ability to perform some unbiased focus groups to find not only what is the quantitative, what is the qualitative data, and breaking that down to see what do county leaders, school district leaders, and other folks of the same kind have to say about the most pressing issues. Where is their opportunity to address those issues, and where is their great need to address them as well? So with that, we were able to move into establishing over the course of a few years, because as many of you who've been tracking with us know, it's been a creating a finer and finer point on what the focus areas are. So now we have these to share with you, and we do a few definitions on an FAQ as well on our website, and to get a little deeper. But of course, if you want some clarification on the call, put a question in the chat. So I'll just briefly read over them as you can do the same. So for basic needs, food, shelter, crisis intervention, and stabilization, that refers to a personal individual's crisis that may or may not be life-threatening, such as an individual needing assistance in fleeing domestic violence, such as a mental or behavioral health crisis, something of that nature. Disaster response as well, referring to natural or declared disasters. And then being developmental milestones from birth to 5, kindergarten readiness, and prenatal care in the first trimester, referring to the many different things where we can mark success for children birth to 5. And then workforce development, mainly talking about getting folks participating in post-secondary training or the workforce and reducing the number of opportunity youth. That's referring to individuals 16 to 24, not working currently or not in school. And then of course, job readiness and retention. So these are the focus areas as they are now. And we're really excited to get some folks working on these. And of course, we'll share this out. And this is also, there's a separate recorded one that we have that anyone can see if they want to come back and check later. And these are also all available on our website with even more detail than we've got here. Excuse me. Okay, so moving forward through that, this is just to show you a brief mapping. This is just an example of some of the ways we've broken this data down within our region. So these are our 12 counties that we serve. And these numbers correlate to a few different pieces of, as I referred to multiple times now, secondary data, some other information that we have feeding in to create a out of 100 scoring based on overall well-being. But referring to these 3 focus areas, of course, if something is slides outside of the scope of this, it's not included in that number. And this would be the scoring for each individual community or each individual county within the specific focus area. And we break this down even further again on our website. We won't get too in depth with it now, but of course we're happy and willing to share the data that's behind this also because we think it can be helpful. But not to get too bogged down, because I know that mostly what we all want to see is our application itself. So we're going to keep moseying on. And again, if you have questions, drop them in the chat box, and we'll either start now or we'll save them for later. So next piece is our application process itself. First, we'll give some big picture timeline and then go right into showing you literally what the application will look like. So first and foremost, the application will open May 1st. We will have links on our website. We will send you all an email. We will put it in our newsletter. We will hopefully make it as hard to not find to lose it as possible. We'll try to put it in front of you as often as we can. And it will close June 1st. So there's a month window of application, and you'll see the length of the application. It won't take you as long as many others that I've done at least, but it should be very doable. Then we have what's going to first happen is there is a brief staff screen. The staff screen is solely in case something did not catch through our eligibility requirements, but then it will then go in front of the volunteer panel. So we have volunteer review panels in the 3 focus areas. Those end up being about 12 to 15 individuals in the area of basic needs, 12 to 15 in the area of early childhood success, and then 12 to 15 in workforce development. These folks are incredible. They are subject matter experts and community leaders from across our region. We're happy to say that it's very well representative of the different counties we serve. And those are that's what we mean when we say volunteer driven. They're going to be a part of the conversation and scoring process for the different applications. From there, some will kind of parse down the applications. Some will move to doing site visits and presentations. Some we will share some feedback from the panels, and that will be the end of it for those groups. Now, as you're all probably imagining, site visits might look a little different this time around. We may do them. The plan now is to at least have a secondary plan if we cannot do an in-person meeting, or if an organization isn't comfortable doing one, or of course the volunteers as well. And we'll know more about that when later on in late May, hopefully, or June, early June, and we'll do site visits and presentations during July and really just mostly during July is the plan. But we may end up doing virtual ones, or of course also a Zoom presentation to the committees or panels. We'll see when the time gets there. Then they'll make their recommendations to the Community Impact Committee, who will help them fit it into the overall budget for the funds that are available, make recommendations to the United Way of Northeast Georgia Board, and then funding begins January 2021. We hope to announce who will receive the programs funded by October of this year. If we can do it sooner, we will do it sooner. But that's the goal, is October. And the first funds will be distributed in January 2021, and then start working on it again. So moving through, just put this here again to say that those volunteers are key for us. And this is kind of the volunteer chart for us. So the board of directors makes the final decision, and the impact committee has helped create this process and what we're working on now. And then our 3 separate panels are really what's going to, having this kind of participation, this kind of community buy-in is something we're really excited about. So we can go ahead and get started on this. And I've already got it pulled up on a different screen share, so let's do that. So here we are at, this will be the page that you would create your profile in. It's also the same page you would sign into later. So you're welcome to do that when this goes live. What I will say is, if you were to just Google EC Impact application, lots of different United Ways use EC Impact for their application. So just, I would say, try to use the links we send in our emails, use the link on our website. If you don't see United Way of Northeast Georgia up here, then you're probably not on ours, because I mean, I can find the United Way of Maine or wherever, if you are just Googling around. And then if you're making it for the very first time, you would go down here to the new TC Impact and create your profile to apply. And so we'll go ahead and do that, and I'll use another organization's. And so first you'll drop in here, you'll see, you'll say again, United Way of Northeast Georgia, it has my email. So you'll know you're in the right place again, and it's still at the top, still the same piece we had before. And so moving through, it'll then ask you for EIN to confirm this organization. It also makes it so that no one organization can accidentally create 2 profiles. If you have 2 staff members that maybe you were like, oh, we should apply for this, you can actually make a contact for both of them. They can both, 2 different people can log into the same application. Maybe someone has more knowledge about the finances and someone has more knowledge about the other pieces, and you'd rather not them have to share a login. Entirely up to you. But for the sake of our example, I'm going to pull up my other random nonprofit EIN. So the United Way of King County in Washington is the one we're going to use, just because they will certainly never apply for our grant applications. So you'll put in your EIN, and some of the information will be filled in. That's just from the federal government. It's already there and logged. You can certainly change anything you need to. If something pops up and you're like, well, that doesn't seem like exactly. No, it likely is. And I'll go ahead and drop in my information for the sake of brevity. And so you'll just add your contact information and move through. This is very just simple, so we can have the profile, and you'll create a username. And move to the next portion. If I can make up the same fake password. Great. So you'll then move through, once you create your username and password, to our application page. some United Ways have multiple different application processes, so that's why you'll see it's kind of a selectable here. We have the one, so it's a little bit it's a lot simpler for us, and you'll just see a brief description of the funding process and what we're doing. You can see the same description again as soon as you've logged in. It'll be there as well. So that's just to let you know kind of the process we were already talking about. So moving through, once we created this, then we'll, excuse me, then we will be in the eligibility requirements page. So this is simply a page where we list all of our eligibility requirements for organizations, and you will go through and either confirm that those things are true about your organization or say that you cannot confirm that is true about your organization. In this instance, because all of these are requirements voted on by the committees, we do in fact require all of them to be confirmed. If anyone is not able to be confirmed, it will disallow you from making a profile. If for whatever reason that happens, like, oh, I clicked it wrong or something like that, email me, we can fix it. If it's the case of, that thing actually was not confirmed, then of course it's simply that the organization is not eligible in this instance, and this won't be the round in which you can apply. So simply having a board of directors, and I'll tell you now, just so you don't feel like this is the most text heavy part of the entire application, is reading the eligibility requirements just confirmed. So, so you're aware that this will not all be quite like this. So then you serve, are you located in or provide services in any one of the 12 counties that we serve? Is your organization a 501c3 or operating under a fiscal sponsor? It is one. We will not consider proposals from certain types of organizations. These mainly outline organizations that do not provide direct service to individuals within the populations we're trying to serve. If we did have the question last time, and I think it bears answering even without someone asking, that when we refer to an advocacy organization, we are only excluding organizations who do not provide any services to a given group of individuals. If you're an advocacy organization that also assists the individuals directly for whom you advocate, that's super, and that organization can apply. It's more referring to organizations that solely do political advocacy and the like. That's not something we're going to be funding through this process. I will not consider proposals for certain types of expenses, mainly including capital expenses, endowments, events, and the sponsorships. Those are same question about serving the 12 county region, having a current mission and vision, and a couple of these are simply to confirm things that should already be true and prepare you for the fact that these will be asked of you in the application itself. And so this is one, must be able to submit a Form 990 as well as an audit if budget over $500,000, or a financial review if less than $500,000 in a given year. So that's based on the state's requirements that organizations with a budget over $500,000 are required to have an audit. So then this one again is one where we're just simply showing that this will be something asked of the organization in the application. It's talking about sufficient financial operating capacity. Again, if you're not confident, then we encourage you to apply, and then the volunteers we will sort it out when it gets there. If you're not certain, I mean to say, hopefully you're confident. But we move to, do you have bylaws for your board? Complying with anti-terrorism laws? Question we have to ask. If your organization is a national organization, that's great. We just want to make sure that there is some local control of budget decisions. And you'll see that question will show up on the application again. And it gives you a spot to say, yes, we have control over certain types of decision-making processes. And that way we can just be aware of that so that no funds are supplanted or moved around by a national organization because you did receive our funding. Offering services in a non-discriminatory manner. That as a condition of receiving funds, we are expecting to have a quarterly and annual report of the process how things are, the progress, how things are going, output and outcome measures. This portion here is referring to the application request maximum. So how we have computed a maximum is based on the size of the organization itself and the funds that it has operated with in the past. So we were asking that organizations only apply for 20% of their program and service expenditures for the prior year's 990, the most recent 990 are provide. So not the specific program you are applying for, but 20% of all the programming and all services provided by your organization. That's the number that you could potentially apply for. That doesn't mean that that's the funding that's guaranteed. No funding is necessarily guaranteed, and it will become kind of a conversation at a point of like how much can be good. We all know that we're looking at a very different year for fundraising for everybody, so we'll be able to work it out and figure that out with those who are chosen to be funded. And then the minimum grant funding request is $5,000. So then continue, it will ask, is all of this true? We'll say, yes, this is all true. And we have completed our profile. Moving through to the next stage, it'll let us in to the application page. So this might be a good point to pause for questions because I was talking for a little while, and so we'll take a brief pause and ask questions. Any questions about the focus areas, eligibility, and I did get one, and I'll go ahead and answer it out loud. We distribute the proper link. We will distribute the proper link to this page to everybody on this call, as well as everybody who's been on another webinar and as many of the folks we have contact with that are a nonprofit as we can. So if anyone has one, certainly welcome to ask it. If not, we will move to this next section. All right, so moving right along, this is the main page for EC Impact. So this is what you would see once you create a profile, and you would be able to go click around and see the different pages that we've got on here. This is the main one that includes your forms to fill out, as well as some brief description and information about the application process itself. If I were to click in here, so this is we've already on our home page, or now we're on our home page. We're on our application page. So home page looks like this, and you'll see that it is 100% not started on my application. Once you start some, this will start to fill in, and you'll see your progress as you go. You can log in, log out. You can save, leave, and come back throughout the entirety of working on this. Just make sure that as you do so, you save every time, because you do have to actively save by clicking the save button. And we'll show you that later. It gives a countdown to the due date, which is the 1st of June at 5 p.m. That's a Monday. So we thought that would maybe give a little bit more flexibility for folks. This is our calendar events. And so just showing when the application starts, due, and site visits we are hoping to have them. Again, all things considered with our current circumstance. And then even the first check sent. Now this is a typo that I need to get in there and fix. So that should say 2021, not 2020. Then our questions, you can contact me and I'll be able to answer them. So then fairly simple to move around. You can see your agency profile, just the same information you had before. If anything changes for whatever reason, or you can add some new information. Contacts, if you needed to add an additional person. So again, say you have one person, they work on these programs specifically, but you've got all the financial information. You can both be able to log in separately, or you can both just share your same account if that's something you want to do. And you can see who logged in last. You can see kind of what you've been up to. Program profiles. These will come into play later on when you actually once you've applied for something, you'll have to enter program information, or once you start applying for funds, you'll have to enter program information, and they will show up here if you have multiple programs or just the one. You might have an email history. So I've already received some confirmation emails that we do have a profile from me, and those that's simply just, if you think, oh, I think I got that, I'm not sure, you can find them here. but you should also get them in your own email inbox. And then application was the same page we saw before. And training resources, this is actually just simply filled with site manuals for EC Impact. It's a fairly intuitive site. We're hopeful that this won't be a much needed page, but of course, if you want to learn a little more, if you're having trouble clicking around, you can search it. You can also email or call me, and I'm happy to help out if that's the problem. We can actually remote in to see what you're seeing. So that's a pretty cool piece of it as well. So that's all to show this blank one. I'm now going to switch over to an already filled out version so you can see more of the application. So let me sign into my other profile here. And now this is a 100% completed version of the application. The rest of it looks the same. That is the main difference. And this is where we've applied, done a fake application or example application, best way to say it probably, for the program Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, which is a program that we run in-house that is also not able to apply for funding through this process because it's already in-house. So as you'll see, this is some new pieces here. We're on that same application page. These two portions look familiar, possibly. It just shows a submission deadline and some information. And then this shows where you can create new programs. Because for every application, you both need agency input and a program for which you'll apply within a specific focus area. So this portion will not pop up until you have finished everything and clicked mark as completed. So this is only here because we finished it. So I'm going to jump into this and we're going to go page by page with a relative swiftness. So agency information, this is the basic one, the most basic of the pages we asked to fill out, but it does ask a few key points of information. Main stuff you've kind of already included, and a lot of this I believe does autofill for what you already had from before. Or is that individual, so just key contact, whoever that might be, really for the application process, who they need to call. Of course, if the person they need to call is your executive director and somebody else is the one filling this out. Key contact is different for the person completing the application. Are they the primary person completing it? What if they're not the primary person completing it? Then you can add information for the person completing the application if your primary needs to be whoever it needs to be for your organization. So we could just as easily, I could switch mine to, if I had created a contact for Kay Keller, I would put our CEO, Kay Keller, here, and I can make me the person filling out the application just as simply. That way we would know who to reach out to with questions. Moving back, it goes right away. This next piece, fiscal year. When we say fiscal year, we just want to know what your fiscal year is. Ours runs January to June. January to December. It used to run July to June. We switched that a couple years ago. Yours might be whatever it might be. That's helpful to know, especially for we and our volunteers reading financials. It just makes it a little less confusing to know, okay, this is how they normally run things. Then giving a brief narrative description. This is overview of your agency, not yet about the program or the service you're applying for funding for, just overview. This is the goal of our organization. This is an area where you would put that vision and mission. If you have that written out succinctly, you can include that or anything of the sort. And so ours is simply the United Way Northeast Georgia mission and vision right here. And it's just as simple as including that. Giving the number of full-time equivalent employees. If you're a solely volunteer organization, the answer is 0. If it is only part-time people, it can be a decimal place. It can be a decimal answer. That's okay. We're just trying to get an understanding kind of who's working on it, who's working on this at this agency. And then what percentage of board members give financially. Is the organization part of a larger national organization? So this is one where we answered yes, United Way is a larger entity. We are a United Way. And so that then prompts this next question to pop up. It says, do you have a local board of directors or local decision-making committee? We do. We have a local board of directors, even though we are a United Way. If I were to say no to this question for just a non-affiliated organization, then that second question doesn't even pop up. And that's kind of throughout the application, things like that exist. So back to the correct answer. And then this next one, would you like us to use your information to update 211? That's a completely voluntary. It's just a little helpful. If you would not, that's fine as well. But it's just for us to update our 211 helpline with any new information that was included in this application that might not be in the profile we have over there. And that's really referring to the later program application, not so much this exact form itself. So moving next, this is which of the following counties has the agency served for 2 or more years? I want to again emphasize that this is not referring to the program itself. This is the agency. If your agency does one thing in one county and one thing in another county or at a different site or location, that's totally fine. We just want to know which ones does the agency serve. It gives us a good idea of what's going on across the region. And so our organization serves each of these counties, but I can of course deselect any, whichever ones that we may not serve. Normally it would, when you would first see it, it would show up all blank, nothing checked, of course. So then down here, I'll just show you some of these function buttons before we move to the next page. There's just saving your work, saving and returning to the previous page, and there's saving and marking as completed. If you just click return to overview page, it will not save. If you just X out the whole screen, it won't save. You have to click save somewhere to save. The same buttons can be found in a tiny form up here. And that's just good to know. So you can save as you go. You can save it, log off, come back and do it later. And in some instances, that will be very helpful to be able to do so. And so don't worry about losing anything that you've placed. So the next one that you see is notes and additional information. That is an optional form. You do not have to have notes and additional information unless you have notes and additional information to share. If one of the questions didn't suffice for you, but we're going to go ahead and move into go through all of the required ones first. Then we can talk about that. Attachments is what you think it is. We are simply asking that if you could attach your 501c3 letter, board roster, your current agency budget. So for the current year we are working in right now, most recent audit and financial review, same stipulations as before. If an organization's over $500,000 or below, over audit, under financial review, then 990. We are asking that the audit or financial review and 990 be from the same year. We understand that maybe your most recent of one is not the same year as the most recent of the other, but please just try to make them both the same year, even if you have to go back a year for one of them. That's all. This is just to line it up a little more easily. For reading the balance sheet, profit and loss, or financial statement, just whichever one is most available and ready to go for you from the end of your most recently completed fiscal year. Again, that's why it's helpful to know the fiscal year. If it's one from June, we would know, or if it's from December of whatever year it might be. And then this is simply an additional documentation note. If you have an additional document that you feel the need to include, this would really kind of go along with that same earlier notes section that I mentioned. If you just need an additional substantiation, if something isn't clear, you can put it there. But again, we are not asking you to include anything additional. It's solely if you need it or particularly feel like you want it. So then in this instance, something that when I was first making this example caught me off guard, I did not realize, but when you first click them over here and include them in this section, they're not automatically uploaded. You have to save it for them to be uploaded. So it takes moments to go redo it, but it would be frustrating the first time you tried because it was to me. And so you'd saved, upload all the documents that you've attached. And that's as far as we've got on the attachments page. So moving along to program information. This is where we kind of get into the more specifics of what is the program you are applying for, how much funding are you hoping to receive, and what are we going to accomplish together. So here, you start off. If the address of this program site is different, you can include it. If not, it's going to just be right there. And the name of this program for this example is Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. We applied in the category of early childhood success for this example. Of course, whichever one is most pertinent to your organization, to your program rather, would be the one you would select. So any one of the three. The way we're breaking it down is if you are applying within a certain focus area, we ask you only apply with one program in any given focus area. However, if you have multiple programs that serve different focus areas, you could potentially apply within different focus areas, like one in one and one in another from the same agency. Same would be true if you were applying as a collaboration with someone else. And we'll talk about collaborations in a moment. If that's confusing, of course, ask. So first, this is the area where you get more characters than most other places. Describing the program includes some challenges and accomplishments. This is the place where you can share what you're doing and brag on the great work that it is. That's what we want to happen right here. We want you to show us why this is the thing that needs to get funding. And there will be other opportunities for that as well, but this is the initial, here's what we do and why it matters. So, and maybe just some successes you've had. So we've shared the Dolly Parton's Imagination Library program, sends free books to kids from birth to 5, and they've performed really well. It's increased performance among children. And we just included some partnerships that we've had that we're excited about. And that felt like a good success to share to us. So whatever sharing there, whatever success or pieces that you think would be compelling, that's where you'd share it. This is the part with the most room for it. Then please describe your target population, age range or demographic, information, income level if available, whatever best articulates the individuals and populations that you are serving. That's just what we want here. So this program serves kids birth to 5 that in two particular counties. That's where it's available. And so you would include information similar to that. And I think I moved beyond that. There we go. And so we also briefly shared why that was important, but you'll be asked that again, describing the need for the program or gap in service. So what we mean is show us why we need it. Show us why we need this particular program, why this is going to be something that either wasn't there before, or we need more of it, or there's just such a great need among this population or in our area, or simply the need is just so great. This is where you show that part. This is where you show us the need. And then we just dropped in as well, cost per beneficiary as another point of note, just a number that we can just have moving forward through some other documentation, through some other parts of the application. So for this particular program, it's $26 per person is how we break that down. So counties served by program, when we're talking about the programs specifically, we are asking that if program service delivery is different from one place to another, that you could explain that. If it's not, super, you can just copy paste the same description under each county that you click yes for, where it asks if the services don't differ, or you can just type literally the word same instead. I copy and pasted it, but I could have just easily said it's the same. Because we do the same thing in every county. We provide Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. This is solely because some organizations might provide a program in multiple counties, but it just looks different in one area than another. Maybe they have a service delivery site in one area, and maybe they go out to another one that they drive out to and can only do it a couple days a week, or they only do it 5 days, whatever the reason might be. And again, I want to emphasize the fact that it is super if an organization serves multiple counties, but we are not particularly saying that if you serve 1 or serve 7, that's better than the other. We just want to know where are you serving, and we want to make sure that we are serving our community well. Those things certainly matter, but what matters most is the individuals who are serving are served well. That's first and foremost, and that will be able to be shown as we go along. All right. So last thing on this page is about collaborations. So this is a small piece, but it's an important piece. And we want to make sure that any of you who are hoping to apply as a collaboration will do so. And you'll see this portion as well. So this example is not, but we're going to say that we are for the sake of conversation. And then you'll be asked to show how many collaborating partners are you sharing funding with. So when we refer to collaborators, we're not referring to just any organization you might partner with on a given week or whatever programs you provide. This is a specifically targeted collaboration to deliver the service we're talking about. So they're necessary, and there's going to be a funding share here. So let's say there are 3 participants in the collaboration. The first one you'd share is your own organization, and then the amount of funding, the portion of the request you've made to United Way of Northeast Georgia that will go to that organization, the portion that will go to collaborator number 2, and the portion that will go to collaborator number 3. So that's the way that we have kind of defined collaboration is that two or more organizations are working together to deliver outcomes that they could not achieve alone, and that there is a partnership of such a kind that funding is required for both of those organizations. Now, the funding can of course be housed at one and used by both. That's actually the hope we would have, is that one organization applies and then they kind of work through this. This is also how we hope to utilize any fiscal sponsorship applications, that if a larger organization is applying alongside some smaller ones to help their application out, that larger organization would apply as the main collaborator with the others as additionals. And then, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. There is a question
please.
on this. I know we said we were going to wait till the end, but there's a question that's very pertinent to this in the chat. Should I read it, or do you want to open up the chat and take a look?
You can read it as well,
Sure.
for everybody's sake, while I also
Yes, for collaborators, do you describe the lead or applying agency, or do you combine the information for all members of the collaboration? For example, county serve, full-time employees, board giving. And I believe that initial part that you just went over, that would be the lead agency, all of their information, and then the collaborator information is here. I think the main stipulation is that for the budget, the 20% of we talked about before, that the most you can ask for is 20% of your program and services budget. If you are collaborating, that would be 20% of the program and services budget for the collaborating entities. But in terms of reporting all of that other descriptive information for all of the collaborators, and Mark, this may be something, this is the first time we've gotten this question, it is just for the lead agency in terms of all the other information. It's mainly, this section is the only part where you would need to list the specific collaborator information.
That is the case. Oh, that got weird. Okay, now we're on feedback. Yes, and this is a very good question. I'm glad it's asked, because that's one we need to definitely think about. So the first time we've thought about, yes, for an applicant that is applying to the collaboration, the main difference, the big difference is they can then apply, that collaboration can then apply for 20% of all of those collaborating organizations combined expenditures and services. So I guess that is what it is. And then, so that's a way to kind of encourage collaboration to make that application can be larger. Those specific pieces of information, they would solely be the main applicant, and we would potentially request some additional information later on if it's necessary from the volunteers. But once we move from this page, so I guess the big thing would be when you enter financials for the program, it would be financials for this collaborative program if it has a budget of sorts. And we'll talk about that on the next page about that. And then when we get to outcomes and outputs, those would be in reference to the collaborative program, not just the one agency. So while this one page, this would only refer to the single entity, everything on this page would refer to the collaboration as well. The agency page that you're asking about, the one with the number of full-time employees and counties served by, and the board giving, those are all just that one agency that is the lead collaborator. If that feels like something that you're just like, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, we want to include this information too, it would be helpful. That can be brought in the notes section as well. Or of course, if multiple folks are applying for that and want to ask about it, we can work on it together and figure out how to best include some information that would strengthen some applications. But right now, it's just referring to the lead applicant there. So if that feels like it answers the question for now, and of course, if you have more specific ones, we can talk about it. Joan, does that work for now? Got it. Great. Thank you very much. Super. Bring us back down to none. And then, oh, well, my mistake. One last thing to show you is the next question asked is, how does each collaborator contribute to overall outcomes? So we wanted to show, why does it matter that these organizations are a part of the collaboration? Why did they need to be? How is everybody contributing to the overall outcome measures that are being achieved? Move from there, and then same buttons apply, save work, mark as completed. And then we'll move straight on to the program budget request. So this one, we've just got a couple of charts. We're only asking for 2 years of information, one that's happened and one that's projected. So we're asking about 2019, not 2020. So it's previous year actuals. And remember again, this is the program revenue, program expenditures. So that's specific to the program itself, the money raised by, specifically for it or specifically by it, if it's a fee-for-service kind of program or parts of it are fee-for-service, so to speak. And so we would input these different pieces since very few organizations, so some of you have received United Way funding before. And since a couple of you are on the line, I'm going to go ahead and answer a question someone asked last time that was a very good question, but a pretty specific one to those of you who have received United Way funding before. In this line, you would include the amount of dollars utilized on this program that you received from United Way Northeast Shore. So if you're applying for the same program, a program you've used funds from United Way on before, you would include that number. If you're not, then it's not there. That's how we want to do it in this instance. Otherwise, you would just share how has this program been funded, what the volunteers are really looking for, and what we're looking for is hopefully some diversity in the funding, but of course also, if not, some adjustments from prior years. So say if everything is all in one in 2019, then hopefully in 2021 there's been some adjustments. Say, okay, well, we can find some funding here and here, unless there's a particular reason why not. So just those are kind of what we're looking for, not necessarily to poke at and find any significant deficits and surpluses, but really to see, is there growth? Is there adjustments based on what's happening? And also I will point out, for projecting 2021, we know that's going to be different now, and that's going to be hard to do. And it's hard for everybody. And so we're just going to ask us, do your best, and we'll all understand that it's going to be different from what we may have expected. In this particular application, I adjusted it a little bit to say, I would expect individual giving to this particular program to go down in this instance. So if we projected that loss there, and then additionally, for this program, we projected a significant drop in, here's what I have it described. So you can click to add new revenues. And I'll go ahead and answer that because I just saw it come into. Yes, this is a combined program budget for collaborations. If you're a collaborator, everything beyond the point where you say we're collaborating, it's together information. The only one that's solo is agency. So for this budget, this would be a combined program budget. And sorry, the corporate donors. This is just a line item in our revenues for this program this past in 2019, and there were just significant one-time donations we do not expect to receive again. They were so much saying that this is a one-time big thing we can do. So we went ahead and projected that's not coming through again the same kind of way. And so that shows, one, a significant surplus for 2019, and then a significant drop going to 2021. And we wanted to explain that. So I've added a note in the notes section saying, this is why this happened. This is why we're projecting it this way now. So looking then quickly at the expenditures, this is a unique program that has very few different expenditures, because all we do is, in fact, we have a bunch of books that we send to kids. So we pay for the supplies and the mailing of them. And so it's very different from what a lot of yours will likely look like. And there was formerly personnel costs involved, and now there are not personnel costs specifically involved with that program. And so we see these changes in expenditures as well. So those, and it will show the surplus and deficit for the given years. And again, you can project whatever is most accurate to project for 2021, and we hope that you will do so. And then I will save and mark that as completed. And for the sake of having already said it, I'll just jump into this notes section to show where we put all the notes in one place. That way, if an organization doesn't have a note, it won't kind of get in the way of everything else, because a lot probably won't need it. The first note is if you have a note about any of the attachments that you've included, for whatever reason that might be, or if you felt the need to include an additional attachment, you can explain here why or what that was. And then this note is specific to the budget chart. Those were the ones that we felt like folks would want to explain something for. And here we've explained that significant surplus in 2019 was due to some multiple large one-time gifts, not expected to be repeated, so we've adjusted accordingly. There's also the option for a volunteer or staff to send a question to you. So once the application's been submitted and we're in the review process, there is kind of a segment there where questions could be asked of whoever sent in the application from your organization. It's also set up to where basically if someone asks a question, everyone who has a contact with that organization gets the email. And you can see, you can log in, you can answer that question yourself. So they can ask that of you all instead of them asking us and us asking you, and it being a whole go-between. They can also directly send it to whoever sent in the application if they had a question, say about the budget, say about the collaboration, say about the outcome measures. So with that, we'll go ahead and move into the last section. And this section is where we share the performance metrics, the measures that your organization is tracking or hoping to track going forward. So the first one is outputs. The second portion is outcomes. Many of you I know are more familiar with the difference between outputs and outcomes than I am. But if you could just simply share that the outputs are the literal number, the persons served, meals served, books delivered in this case, or number of children sent books, the literal thing done, and the outcome is why that matters. What was achieved by that thing being done. So in ours, we're saying that a higher percentage of kindergarten readiness benchmarks were achieved by more kids, this many kids getting books, or these children receiving books. So I'm going to go into one of these and show you the one that we did. So if I go into edit this, you'll see where we would type in our output measure. We'll say the actual number for 2019, year to date 2020, and projected 2021. It's going to look different for everybody, but here we have how we plan to track the outputs. And so for this program, it's fairly simple how we track the outputs because the mailing system that we use automatically logs how many kids are getting the books. But then we're asking to also to share how does this output contribute to the outcome you hope to achieve? So how does this tie with the next step, which is the outcome? How does this impact those kindergarten readiness benchmarks? And so we've written a short narrative about that. You can have as many output measures as you feel are helpful. We require at least one. I'd say a few is as many as you probably need. I'd say if you go beyond 3 or 4, you've got a lot, but whatever you think makes the best case for the programs you're talking about, share that. So let's go ahead and see if I create a new one. I first just type it out. So we'll just make up one for, probably better if I made one up for a different focus area so you could see some of the other focus area options. So I'll save this and mark it's completed. And so what if I were to choose a different focus area? So it begins with selecting the focus area. I'll use basic needs this time, and I'll save and continue. And then I could put meal served or emergency shelter provided, whatever it could be. It would be a number of meals. And I would say we continue, and it would ask me to then give those same numbers, 2019, year to date, 2021. And it goes on as we saw before. I'm going to go ahead and delete that measure. that's how it would look when you're first creating that one. And let me get it fully deleted. There we go. Okay. Now moving to outcomes. So outcome measures, there's a little bit more to them, as you might imagine. So it'll be easier for me to start here, I think. So first of all, you'd select your focus area. I'm going to have to work backwards, I apologize. So let's say we're in early childhood success. And we've got some outcome measures to choose from. I'm going to work backwards a little bit to show you what that means. So when you first select your focus area, it will give you a drop down of these outcome measures. Now there are a couple preloaded ones. Those are super to choose. You choose one of those. We know that those are in line with the focus area. They fall underneath the kind of umbrella what we're looking for. You can write one in. And we welcome you to write one in. We just hope when you write one in, there is an additional question that will be asked to substantiate how that outcome measure applies to the focus area as you understand it. And just I hope that you do, to do that, you would just be able to make that argument confidently to the volunteer panels that would then be assessing this, as well as when we look through it as staff too. So because I've already picked one, so here you can pick either of these two or write a new one in. And when you click write in, you can literally just type it in there. So I'm going to go back to my previous page where I've already answered the question, and I selected % of children meeting kindergarten readiness benchmarks. That was the third of the selectable ones there for birth to 5. And we said previous year actual, we served this many, but we weren't monitoring that number before. Now, hopefully many of you are monitoring the outcome measure that you've got, but for this particular program, we weren't tracking that exact one yet, but we hope to. So we put in our projected 2021 achieved, and we're basing that on the other information we have that kids in our program that receive our books already generally do 10% better than children who do not receive our books. We just haven't measured it this way yet. And then we are hoping for a 5% increase on the state average. So we would see, and then being able to make that argument, being able to substantiate that is welcome here. And we're hopeful that you all will do that. If it's necessary that you show why it would happen. If you already have the numbers to say, well, this is what happened last year, then that's stupendous because you've already shown and proven, yeah, this works because we served that many and this many achieved it. So we've already got a high percentage achieving. So you're going to want to fund our program because it's already successful. That's great. And we hope that you'll apply with a program that's in that way. Here's that question. It's not a required one, but if you have written in a measure, here's where you would explain or how it is making a significant impact in the focus area. So how you would tie your write-in answer to the focus area you applied for. So I'm going to save that and close it, but I'm going to show. Oh, I think I just need to. That's right. There we go. Yep. Okay. So I'll show you briefly now. If I selected a new focus area, this time I'll pick workforce development, and I'll save and continue. It gives me these. There are different drop downs for workforce development. And then there are different drop downs again for basic needs. Each of these is included in our eligibility requirements. So you can see these on our page as well if you just wanted to look over them for the 3 different focus areas. Then of course there's again the write-in section where if you found that something like, no, this, you're just convinced, I know this is workforce development, I hear everything else you're saying and this applies to. Then you can certainly write one in. You can also have more than one. If you feel the need to write one in and you could also select one, that is also viable and potentially a great option. So returning back, basic needs, same thing. There are some different ones to choose from. And that is what we've got for you. Everything's completed. So in that instance, then I would put our executive director, our board president, and our board treasurer's names, and submit that application. and it would go right on, and we'd get a confirmation email, and that's the thing. That's what we have as far as the share. If there's any questions about this particular one, we can come back to screen sharing this. Otherwise, we can move on to really just Q&A at this point. I'm on the right page. All right. So,
Mark, there was one question that I, just so you don't have to track through all of them. It had to do with, and I think I know the answer to this, but just to check, for the budget, if it's a brand new program that did not exist in 2019, then basically that column would all be zeros, correct? Because there was no funding at all, whether it's from United Way or any other entity.
that's correct. That's a great question. Someone asked that, I think, after the last training, and that'll be on the FAQ. Those kind of things are on the FAQ too. That's a great question. Yes, it would all be zeros in the instance that it was a new program.
Okay, and one other question. If it's a 501c3, if it's a nonprofit, it'll have a board of directors, but are there other entities that can apply for this funding that are not technically a 501c3 and may not have a board of directors, or is that a yes or no make or break stipulation?
If they are not one, they need one to apply with / for them.
Okay.
That's kind of the fiscal sponsor idea. Say there's an organization that is, well, I guess that's really the end of the answer. And I can get more, if you have a specific example you want to ask for, we can talk about it offline too. But
Yeah,
right
I'll
now,
respond to that person in that way.
Okay, super. And
the other questions are towards the end, which I think you can see. So
yeah, I see this one about the total amount of funding. I can not say the exact amount right now, as you might imagine, but I can say it will be significantly less than prior allocations that United Way has been able to give out. It would be more akin to this year, if that's helpful for your particular question. As far as the equal disbursement across the purpose areas, it will be very close, even if it is not quite equal. That conversation is about to happen with the Community Impact Committee very soon. In fact, that's the meeting in May to determine that, so that we have it for the volunteers review for when they are saying yes and no and up and down to how much funding to provide to any given application. And things are different right now than they were a few months ago when we thought we knew where we would put things. So that conversation's, we'll just have to see. I will say that it's very likely they will be remarkable. They will be similar. It's not going to be too drastically different, one focus area over the other, unless there's a reason the committee believes that it needs to be that way. But most likely there will be some variation, but as of right now, not a terribly drastic one, but we will see. Great question. For the volunteer organizations, it is not a problem if they don't have an executive director. And I don't believe there's well, I mean, I guess you could screen share and fill the application out together. I don't really have a way to stop you if you use Zoom or something like that on the same page. You can also all log into one and work on it on separate computers. That's fine. Now, I haven't tried having two people logged in as the same person at once. I don't think that would work. But if you both had a contact, then you could both, in the system, you could both log in and work on it at the same time, if that answers that question well. So we had a few preloaded questions. I'll just go through and see if we haven't already answered them. So what if your I'm not sure if your organization is eligible. I'd say read those eligibility requirements, and if you're still not sure, you can send a question to us. You can email us and let us know. And we certainly want folks to apply, but we also don't want to we don't want you to waste your time. So certainly just reach out and ask. If you've read through the eligibility requirements, you're like, I'm still not sure, send it on to us. We will send this presentation out in an email for sure. We kind of answered this earlier. What if an organization only serves one county? What if you serve multiple in different ways? Again, the main point is that the groups that you do serve are served very well. Certainly considered which counties are served overall, trying to be considerate of our whole region. But the main point is, are you achieving outcomes? That's the main idea. And then we kind of talked about this with the notes section. And then how do I quality outcome measure? I was hoping that for the sake of anyone who's hoping to do a write-in outcome measure or include a write-in outcome measure with their application, but maybe Tony, if you could give a brief conversation about that. We've got a little bit of time.
Yeah, again, I think you covered it fairly well. And I know lots of folks out there have written outputs and outcome measures. But the idea is that, you know, with United Way moving to an impact model, they're trying to understand not just what is being done, but what change or what benefit or what impact that's having on on the clientele that you're serving, and then overall on the entire community. So a real straightforward example would be something like, if you are a food bank and you say we deliver 1,000 pounds of food per week, and so it's 50,000 pounds per year, that's an output. That's what you did. That's really, really important, and we want to know. But the outcome might be something like what percentage of people reported having reduced hunger. And so that's just an example. I'm not saying that has to be the one, but that would be an actual outcome as a result of the output. And so that, you know, something like if you were a job training agency and you provided GED services and resume writing to 50 people, and you did this through a series of 20 workshops, those would all be outputs. The outcomes would be, did people pass, how many people passed the GED test? How many people got jobs? You might even say, what was their average wage? How many people improved their income? And again, so some of these are embedded already in the application, but if this is a way to really capture and highlight the impact that your organization is having. Consider though whether you could actually measure it. So if you're saying we're doing a job training program and we're going to reduce poverty in Athens, which you're only serving 100 people, that might not happen. You might not affect the poverty rate in all of Athens, even if all 100 people get a job. So you also want to just make sure you're being realistic in terms of what that impact is, and also whether you can capture it. Will you be able to find out in 6 months or a year whether the folks got a job, you know, and kept their job? So that's all. What I would say too, similar to what Mark said, if in the process you have questions, email. You know, the United Way wants people to apply. They want really strong applications. They want to make it hard on the volunteer committees to choose who's going to get these awards. So don't feel like you can't contact Mark, and then Mark can contact me if someone, you know, has some questions about that piece of it. I'm happy to assist. So. I'm just looking to see if there's any questions that came up.
Yeah.
Don't think so.
All right. Well, we appreciate y'all, and we're excited that you chose to participate.